Welcome to the Branding PR Podcast, where we dive deep into the stories and strategies of today's most impactful entrepreneurs, business leaders, and professionals. Whether you're building your brand, scaling your business, or just looking for inspiration, you're in the right place. I feel like they really had us in mind when they created the Riverside, to give you that true on stage, lights, camera, action, all of that feel. And I'm so here for it. It makes it a lot easier. So Gerard, I have been wanting to interview you for the longest. Ever since I came up with the idea and was just like, I want to have these conversations with all of these amazing folks that I meet, clients like yourself that I work with, and just hear about the world from your perspective and from your side, right? And through your eyes, what you went through to get to the point that you're at today. What was that experience like? What were those challenges? And then just having, those conversations that like even more recently, talking about those real challenges of being an entrepreneur and being a business leader. And so, I'm excited to have this conversation with you and really just, deep dive into all of these things. And of course, do this on a recording where, other people can hear it and be able to play back and have a dialogue in and on their own time. So I'm really excited to just get to talk to you and just really unpack all of these things.
Yeah, me too. I mean, there's at this point officially 11 years worth of stories. So we could be here all day if we want to be. So thanks for having me.
Of course. Yes. So definitely, what I want to start with, because this kind of ties back to our more recent conversation, just about, again, entrepreneurship, career journey, and all of that good stuff. And so my first question for you, I definitely wanted to go into, just your background, right? So you went from the corporate landscape, that environment, and you transitioned into leading a true creative movement through Underground Music Collective. So I want to hear from you just what inspired you to transition from that corporate world to becoming an advocate for independent musicians.
Yeah, I mean, that goes all the way back to the beginning of the platform. And, of course, we always keep in mind the transition that took place. It'll be 4 years ago in January 1st, 2021. I took the leap for good from corporate America, but there were a couple attempts before that, and kind of ebbs and flows through life, a lot of life changes that have taken place, but through it all, it's just a commitment to helping people communicate their stories and giving rise to creativity, right? And so it started, of course, with the Quinn Spin podcast back in 2013. I was working another corporate job at the time, and it was a cool corporate gig, don't get me wrong, but like I just kind of felt like I was the spoke in the wheel. I needed an outlet. I needed something that I could call my own. Fun fact, before this, within the year prior, I had finally stopped playing football. I'd finally hung it up at age 25 after playing a couple seasons of semi-pro, and I just needed that thing. And I had done college radio. I went back one night. I had a weekend to myself, August 2013. I went back, listened to some old episodes, and I'm like, I want to do this. Like I was super charged up. I remembered what it was like to have an impact, even though it was 10, 15 listeners every week in college. And I'm like, let's go, let's do this. And so the Quinn Spin was born, as a spinoff of its college predecessor of the same name. And it quickly became about the journey of the independent creative and the independent musician in particular. We always featured music back in college, and that quickly became a part of the show. I went on Twitter, as it was known at the time, found a whole bunch of bands and artists that I didn't know about, had no prior knowledge of. They had no prior knowledge of me. And for whatever reason, they said yes to being featured on this podcast that had 0 episodes, right? So that built for a couple of years. And my contract at that corporate job had expired. That was my first attempt at taking the leap. And I learned so much about what this takes, because I think in those days I was still, very starry-eyed and naive, like, oh, we're going to do this for 6 months. Then we're going to reach out to Sirius XM and they're going to give us a show. And it doesn't happen that way. That was my first kind of taste of the realization that overnight success doesn't exist. Right. And, all through that first run, it was kind of breaking down, these, preconceived notions I had of what it takes to succeed and what it takes to quote unquote make it. Right. And so that run lasted till about halfway through 2015, took a little hiatus. I had moved back to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, where I went to college. My mom had passed in that time unexpectedly, but I still kind of felt this pull, especially after she passed, to have this outlet, something
Mm-hmm.
that I could really dive into and be passionate about. And I loved the podcast. I was kind of reimagining, how we were doing things. Do we want to
Oh.
localize this thing? And I just so happened to have moved to a place with the music scene in Bethlehem, about an hour
Mm-hmm.
north of Philly. And so started a blog around that called Lehigh Valley Underground. Had the Quinn Spin kind of rolled into that, right? And we caught fire pretty quick in the region there. We won a lot of local awards. We were able to collaborate with different organizations locally on events, festivals. Of course, we're churning out the review content, and finding new ways to engage our community. And that was a great run for about 2.5 years. And then around the middle of 2018, I'm like, all right, if I'm going to do this,
Mm-hmm.
I want to go somewhere where the industry is, and I want to learn what I don't know. At that point, I was also on my second attempt being self-employed after working for a PBS station in the marketing department for a couple of
Mm-hmm.
years. I took the leap again a second time, and I was like, all right, like Bethlehem, as much as I love it, there's a music scene. There wasn't really an established industry. I need to go where the industry is. And so it
Mm-hmm.
was between New York and Nashville won. I had friends who lived here.
Yeah.
They were buying a house. They had just got married. They're like, we need a roommate. So if you're going somewhere, come here. And, November 2018, rebranded to Underground Music Collective,
Mm-hmm.
and picked up, moved to Nashville. Classic moving to Nashville story with whatever would fit in your car. And
That is a classic story, though.
yeah, so many people have had that kind of
Yeah.
story, right? Where it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, I just kind of got up and left one day. I mean, I think I was a little more planned than that, but not by much. Like, it all happened pretty quick. I had taken a trip down to Nashville a couple weeks prior, and just to kind of see what I could get moving, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I was meeting up with contacts I had made. I had a couple job interviews, and I had a job interview at the Grand Ole Opry to work security that I forgot I applied for. And while
Mm-hmm.
I'm in town, they call me, and I was only supposed to stay through the weekend, like leave Sunday. And they're like, hey, can you come in Monday for an interview? I'm like, yeah, sure. And I was staying with my friends. I didn't have to, worry about, additional lodging or anything like that. So I'm like, all right, yeah, I kind of went into the trip with the idea of like, okay, I'm staying until Sunday, but there's a chance, depending what happens, that I could stay a few days longer, right? I just kind of had this feeling that something was going to develop. I just needed to come here and
Mm-hmm.
like pound the pavement, right? And so, long story short, I end up getting that job on the spot, and I'm like, well, I've got that, and I've got a Lyft sticker on my car, so I'm moving to Nashville in 2 weeks. And I did, the Monday
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. And, I landed on my feet really quickly here, but then I did go back into corporate America as well, just to kind of get on solid footing,
Yeah.
and did that for a couple of years, through 2020, through the start of the pandemic. And I think, 2020, as it was for a lot of people, was eye-opening for me, because all the bells and whistles of my Nashville life as I knew it, before the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
went away, right? It's your day job that you're working from home and your night job that you're also working from home. And I realized that I moved here to do the night job and not the day job, right? I moved here to build this platform.
Yeah.
And, in the meantime, like, it's still chugging along, but it's chugging along as kind of like a side thing. And I'm starting to feel, a little bit of a groundswell, to the point where it's like, I need to focus more of my attention on this. I need
Yeah.
to focus more of my energy on this. And if I'm sitting at this other laptop for 8 hours a day, not really doing much, if I could be honest, because everyone else was in meetings the entire day. It would not leave me a whole lot of work to do. I'm
Yeah.
like, I might as well just like see what I've got here. I could always go get another job. I could always pivot if I need to. And so I decided in October of 2020 that at the start of the new year, I was out and I was going to focus full time on Underground Music Collective.
Yeah.
And I think like my purpose has become more defined since then, because I'll tell you, like, and I'm sure, as you know, like, taking that leap will teach you absolutely everything you need to know about yourself. And I don't mean just professionally, personally as well. You will understand in much greater detail all the holes in your game and why things are the way they are, and the things that you need to do and the ways you need to level up. And so I'm going to be honest, like, the first year and a half of that leap was just lesson after lesson after lesson, personally, professionally, just like really figuring out like who I was, my place in this whole thing, and what it really stood to create. And in this time, in a professional sense, I also, I think, became much more intimately aware of the journey that it takes to build a successful platform and
Mm,
all of the things that we need to consider as independent creatives, whether we're musicians, whether we're business owners of any kind, in order to help that thing grow. The ways we need to show up and the things that we need to focus on. And what it comes down to is we're all entrepreneurs, right? And
mm,
so as time has gone on, the platform has become more focused toward the artistpreneur, the artist who
yeah.
wants to make a career out of what they're doing and wants to understand all the components to making that work. And so that's where we've come to now. And honestly, that's what really lights me up, is helping that person who gets it, who gets where they're trying to go, who understands that, their vision, depends on their mission, which depends on their values,
Yeah.
and helping them better define those things and better communicate those things out into the world so they can find the right connections, the right audience, the right opportunities. And that's what really lights me up now, because I wish back in 2013 somebody had done that for me. Like, it would have been very helpful to really know what I was aiming for at the start of this entire thing 11 years ago. I think back then it was just like, I need an outlet. I'm getting together with my friends. We're recording
Yeah.
every week. And it was a great time. And like, even going back, like last year, we had the 10th anniversary of the show, went back through a lot of old episodes. And it's like, wow, there is a lot of good content here. But if we had the quality of content back then with the knowledge of now, like, the Quinn spin would be everywhere. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like, if I can
Yeah.
help somebody to shorten that time that it takes to get there, like, that's what I want to do.
I love that. I love that so much. And it's there's so many important gems that you just dropped, right? Like there's the understanding of, especially in getting into entrepreneurship, that you are taking a huge, huge freaking leap of faith, right? And you're going to be dealing with stuff like right out the gate that's going to poke holes in your plan. I think people get so caught up and this is like another thing that I want to like dive into. It's a perfect segue. With social media, people feel like they see these examples and they're like, "Oh, I made $1 million overnight, and you're slacking if you didn't." I stayed up all night, and that's how I was able to make my first quarter million. And you need to be creating an ebook. You're missing out. And it's like that crap is like, it frustrates me so much as a marketeer to see it, because it's like, first of all, like, wait, hi, FCC, like, you can't, this is false. Like, this is false. False advertising, false cadence, all of the things. But people really do believe this and almost beat themselves up when they try and then they fail, and then they try again and then fail, and then try again and they fail. And it's like, there's obviously something wrong with me. I think I need to create this ebook or whatever they're suggesting, because if they're making this multi-million dollars overnight, why haven't I? I failed just as many times as they did. But I think it's like, it kind of goes back to what you're saying, in that, people think that this overnight success is just like, that is a real thing. And it's not. It's not.
Right, right. There's so much flexing taking place on social
Oh my
media by
gosh.
everybody who decided they were a guru 3 days ago, right? Like,
Yes.
and here's the thing, like, the market for coaches in particular, and I do coach
Hmm.
artists. I am even trying to get away from the word coach because it's
Yeah.
so stigmatized on the internet,
Yep.
because everyone on the
Yep.
internet's a coach. But
Hmm.
like, anybody can decide and promote themselves as a coach. And think about it, like, all you need is a studio setup with good lighting, a nice microphone, and to regurgitate the same points every other quote unquote guru on the internet's making.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you actually can deliver. Unfortunately, like, it matters
Yeah.
if you can convince people you can deliver. And that's
Hmm.
leading to a lot of people who are investing in these programs, courses, whatever, feeling really snake bitten by the whole thing, because the person that was selling them the thing didn't know what they were doing. And therefore, it's this trickle down, of misinformation and lack of
Hmm.
knowledge, right? And lack of experience. Like, I've been at this for 11 years, and I will tell
Hmm.
you, I will tell anybody, I don't know everything. You know what I mean? And anybody who does say they have all the answers and they know everything is either naive or they're trying to sell you something, like,
Mm.
straight out. And we've
I
seen
think there
enough
needs to
of
be a
that.
PSA.
Yeah, like, we've seen enough of that on the internet, right? Like,
Hmm.
it's been so overdone to this point. And, you know, all these tools that we have at our disposal to get our messages out there, to build our funnels, all those things are useful. But what does it come down to at the end of the day? How do you build a business that's sustainable, that delivers what it promises? It's by understanding what people's needs are. It's by communicating. It's by building relationships, identifying challenges, and developing actual solutions to those challenges. Right. And so that's the approach, that I take in mentorship or coaching, if we want to use that word,
Mhm.
where I'm coming with you. I'm coming on the journey with you. I'm sitting down in the trenches and we're figuring out what your specific, unique challenges are. And then we're developing solutions based on that. We're identifying your values, your mission, and your vision, right? And
Yeah.
coming up with solutions to attract your audience, to create experiences, to keep them engaged, and how to build this groundswell then to then take out and pitch for opportunities such as media, such as performance opportunities if you're a musician, partner sponsors, the works. But it comes from like creating that understanding and figuring out how to serve the individual. Right. If you are in the service business, it comes down to how to serve each individual client or group of clients, as opposed to just trying to sell a one size fits all solution, a
Mhm.
template, paint by numbers, solution that's going to work for everyone. It's the secret. You're going to have all the success. Anybody listening to this, watching this out there is no secret. The secret is digging in, trial and error, hard work, tinkering, 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 and building relationships along the way and letting all of that define your journey forward. And as you go to, like, you figure out which things work for you and which don't, which relationships work for you, which don't, and it brings you into closer alignment with who and what you are and what you're trying to build. And I'll tell you, back in the early days, back in the early days of the Quinn Spin and even various points of the UMC platform, it's just like we were at a point where we were trying to be all things to all people. At one point,
Mm.
and I cringe at this now, a few years ago, I think it was during 2020, UMC is for everyone. If you're for everyone,
Mm.
you're for no one, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're for
Yeah.
everyone, you're a commodity. There's not really a whole lot of value. So now our focus on the artistpreneur, we're meant to serve a certain type of artist, and nothing against you if you're, doing music as a hobby or you don't necessarily want to build your platform into a career. Like, more power to
Yeah.
you. But we want the people who want to turn this into a career, because that's where
Mm.
we've been, right?
Yeah.
And so that's
Yeah.
what we can speak to, is this journey of trying to take this from idea to hobby to part-time thing to full-time thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like you've debunked this myth of the overnight success. And I think it's important, especially for the musicians, the artists, the aspire, like, I hate to say aspiring. Let me just stop. I was about to say aspiring musicians. Either you are or you're not. There's no aspiration. It's either you're doing the thing or you're not doing it, right?
Right.
But I feel like those folks that are going to tune in and listen to this can find a lot of important awareness, especially where they're at as it stands now, trying to build their career in music, trying to get their music on major platforms and things like that. Because you're so right in so many ways, in that we're constantly being peddled this information, and it's constantly being pushed that this overnight success thing does exist, and you just needed to do one, two, three, and then you would get there. But like, that should already be a red flag to anyone that's watching. Is like, because if you were able to do it, and if I just needed those one, two, three steps, that's all that I needed to be just successful, then why isn't everybody that equally successful?
That
Right?
part.
If that
Yep.
if it was that simple and that easy, everyone would be doing it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and especially for those artists too, right? Like, as they're building and as they're growing and as they're networking and making those connections, feeling that frustration. And I kind of equate this just even in my own entrepreneurial experience, and feeling those early frustrations of, dang, like I didn't get that client, or dang, they didn't want to do this project or whatever. And then feeling like, okay, maybe like I'm not doing something right, because I see this agency or this person and they're kind of mid. Okay, like their
Mm-hmm.
work is decent, but here they're hitting them, but they're also giving, the salesy car salesman kind of pitch. And so I started second guessing even myself early on, that maybe I need to be like that to get people in the door and to want to work with me. And quickly, that's where I kind of learned, and going through those experiences and those phases is like, all of that is a facade. All of that's not real. And all of that is not going to attract the ideal person that you want to work with you anyway.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
something that, yeah,
Yeah, I think too, like we all go through that, right? Like
yeah,
that, we see what other people are doing and we're like, oh, maybe I should. I mean, I've been through a phase of that. I've been through a phase of that fairly recently, to be honest with you. And I'm coming out of it now because what I realize, especially about my industry, is people don't want that. People are so tired of being sold to on the internet.
mm,
And
yeah,
in my industry, in the music industry, there's a double whammy of the music industry and all the shady stuff that happens behind the scenes
yeah,
there, plus this whole coaching guru industry and all the
hmm,
snake oil that's being sold.
yeah,
So, like, the artists are doubly snake bit because they're getting it from two different angles, from the industry that doesn't care about them, frankly, and
yeah,
from the coaches and gurus that also don't care about them. So why would
yeah,
I invest in your coaching, mentorship, whatever?
yeah,
And I'll tell you why, is because I'm not here to be a guru. I'm not here to say yes. I'm not here to tell you it's easy. I'm here to dig in, do the work with you, and tell you the truth.
mm,
And you'll notice, I'm not your typical internet guru, right? Like the
yeah,
hair, the beard, all that. Like I'm not the polished
yeah,
LinkedIn bro. I'm using natural light. There's no huge studio setup, and that's by design right now,
yeah,
because like I want to be a real person connecting with real people so we can do some real things and we can build a
hmm,
real creative ecosystem that
yeah,
doesn't depend on the gatekeepers, that
yeah,
doesn't depend on somebody saying this is good, this is not good, yay or nay. As far as, what the traditional industry is looking like, or looking for, rather. What I want is for people to lean into who they are and
mhm,
express that and connect with other like-minded people and build their platforms from there, because it's a lot more organic that way, and it's a lot more enduring that way. You think of the artists, right? Or any brand that endures, right?
yeah,
It's the connection that people feel with that brand, with that artist, with that person or people behind it, right? I mean, I use the Taylor Swift example all the time. She doesn't need to be the greatest musician on earth because she is second to none in the history of recorded music at connecting with her audience. Beyonce,
mm,
I would say, is
yes,
right up there too, but you can look at examples from any genre,
yeah,
right? Like it's the people, the artists who endure and have these long 20, 30, 40-year careers,
yeah,
50-year careers. What about them is it that connected with their audience? It's not a particular sound or trend because those things change. It's who they are and the connection that people feel. And so I don't want to ever encourage anybody to go against their intuition or who they
mhm,
are, for the sake of trying to make a quick buck. I don't ever want to pull somebody
yeah,
away from alignment and away from being themselves. I want them to lean further into that, right? Because I
yeah,
know what it's like to be pulled away from that myself,
yeah,
and I'll never go back. Like I'm
yeah,
I'm me, and I'm gonna lean in and I'm gonna do this my way. And I know there's an audience out there. It's not everybody, but again, we
yes,
go back to that point. If it's for everyone, it's for no one.
it's for
Be
no
who
one,
you
yeah,
are and be for who you are for. And that's really, I think, gotten lost in a lot of this, like,
yeah,
make a quick buck, sell, 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 build your funnels. And again, nothing against building funnels and automations, but like, I
yeah,
think there's, if
it
you,
has its place,
it's,
right?
yeah, if there's a purpose behind it, that's one thing.
Yeah,
If it's just for the money, you're going to lose steam, and that's not going to light the dark hours when you're really searching for that purpose.
mm. Oh my gosh, that right there. I feel like it needs to be on a t-shirt. Like that light in the darkness is what you're going to need to sustain and to keep going and to keep pushing. And there's just so many things that you've covered here that is just like it's spot on, right? It's really giving people that authenticity and the realness in the experience. Like that's why this whole overnight success myth, all of that, it's like, no, let's cast it to the side. Like this is the real. You're gonna fail a lot. You're gonna
Mm-hmm.
fail a lot. And if you're gonna fail a lot, it's what you do with those failures, those lessons that you're learning that really is ultimately going to determine what your success is going to be moving forward. But you just have to understand that it's going to happen. Like it's going to happen. You had a really great idea and like you felt really strongly about it. This is gonna be the one that nails it. And you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna rock it, I'm gonna kill this. And then it just is like falls flat. And nobody's feeling it. Nobody buys in. Nobody like even and to equate it back to music, it's like you had a great song and it's like, oh yeah, everybody's gonna love this. This is gonna be great. Oh my gosh, I'm already thinking about this Grammy I'm gonna win and all of this other stuff, and it's like nobody's feeling it.
Yeah.
Nobody's feeling it.
Yeah. And I think those
As a
things too,
creative,
though,
I get it.
that those things have their role though, right?
Yeah,
Because like by pivoting, in a different direction or trying something new and having it fall flat, it reminds you of what brought you to the dance, and it reminds you
mm,
of the direction that's truest for you, right? And most
yeah,
intentional, most aligned for you. I mean, as you were saying that, I started to laugh because I just think of last fall around this time when
yeah,
we briefly had an entire rebrand because I thought people wanted more entrepreneurship and less music. So that's what my community was going to get.
yeah.
Nobody cared. Everyone hated it. Everyone looked at me like I
Wow,
had six heads. And it lasted maybe like a month and a half before I'm like, that was dumb.
pull
We're
it.
going back to UMC. And once we announced we were going back to UMC, like not only did everybody respond very, very happily about that, but like more and more opportunities have been coming in for the platform, for
Yeah,
me. Like we're really in this
wow,
boom period of awareness right now because I was willing to eat crow and be like, okay, that idea didn't work. Like that, we're gonna forget that happened. We're gonna just kind of like, put that over here, and we're gonna go back to being who we are and what we are and what we came to the dance to do in the first place.
yeah,
And I look at that time, it's like, okay, like it's not that there was no value in that, because certainly
yeah,
like the artistpreneur focus came from that time. It's like, how do we roll the best of that idea
yeah,
into what UMC is, right? And how do we take, the lessons from that, kind of throw away what didn't work and like really incorporate what does. And so that's where, as far as like coaching, mentorship, education, like there's definitely a place for that in our platform, and there should be, because if you're an artist, you're an entrepreneur. But to go so broad like we tried to, and like kind of like make it not focused toward the music industry, like our entire audience was scratching their heads. And after
yeah.
about, like I said, like a month and a half, I'm like, wow, I actually really complicated things by thinking I was simplifying them. But
Mm,
there's good to take from this, and let me try it again. Let me roll this back into UMC. We're gonna just not even acknowledge what that was, and we're gonna move
yeah,
forward. And we're gonna keep creating from this place of what brought us here in the first place. This true core
yeah,
purpose. And since then, like just the opportunities, the platform, seeing the opportunities I'm finding, right?
mhm,
It's a byproduct of all the lessons I've learned, including the times like that when I've fallen on my face. Like
yeah,
I've had a lot, a lot of speaking opportunities come up lately. And
mhm,
it's like to the people on the outside, or people who, or maybe acquaintances just kind of watching on social media, they're like, wow, you're everywhere, you're killing it. I'm like, well, I mean, it looks that way. And yeah, I mean,
yeah,
certainly the opportunities are there, but it's not that, I'm just a nice guy and I'm talented. It's that I'm rolling 11 years of hard earned lessons into this, and I'm still learning them. I'm learning them as I
mm,
go. Like as we're recording this, I'm about to, embark on the fall leg of my 10,000th hour tour, as I've called it. And
yeah,
it's like, it's funny because like I call it the 10,000th hour tour because, that's the point of mastery, right?
yeah, yeah.
That's, I forget, was it Malcolm Gladwell? I don't know
I
who
feel
coined
like,
that
yeah,
originally, but you don't get to the 10,000th hour without the 9,999 before. And that's what
mm,
I don't want to get lost here. It's like every single thing that I'm doing is a direct result of what I had to do before it to get here. It didn't just happen. I wouldn't be chosen to speak at these conferences if I hadn't put in the work and learned the lessons and done all that. It's all
mhm,
coming from a place of truth and true experience. And that's what's so exciting about it. But at the same time, like, I don't want to delude anyone into thinking that, like, all of a sudden I've got it made. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because I'm
yeah,
still learning, I'm still growing, I'm still adjusting to this new lifestyle where now I'm going to Canada or New Orleans or wherever to speak, while also
yeah,
having to make sure my needs are met back home and
yep,
the needs of
yep,
the
yep,
platform are met back home. Like, it's a
yeah,
different beast,
it
and
is.
it's exciting, and we need to challenge ourselves to grow. And I'm excited to learn more and share that as I go, because like that's what makes the journey. And that's where I say I come with you instead of coming at you, because it's like I'm on it too. I'm
Yeah,
11 years in, but I don't know everything. I haven't experienced everything to even pretend that I know everything.
Yeah.
So, you know, I want to always impress that upon people is like nobody has all the answers, but we
No.
can definitely help each other uncover what the answers are for us and for our platforms, and that's what I'm here to do.
I love that. I love that. And so in my purview, right? And we've had talks about just, all of the early challenges that you've had, even dealing with childhood cancer. The way that you face and you deal with these issues head on, it's admirable. Like I'm telling you now, like I am inspired by you constantly. And it's one of those things that I look back and I kind of ask you, when you were experiencing all of this adversity very very early on, do you feel like that was a part of shaping your perspective on life, entrepreneurship, and leadership to be at this point that you are today, to be like, listen, you've got to deal with this like head on, and this is
Mhm.
kind of, and just understand that this is always going to be something that you're learning and you're dealing with it. There's no reaching the mountaintop and then that's it. I've reached it and now that's done. I have nothing else to do. Like, do you feel like those
Right.
experiences early on with dealing with adversity then kind of shape the way you are now
Oh,
in
absolutely.
that
I
perspective?
say that my two greatest non-human teachers are football and cancer. I
Yeah.
started playing football freshman year of high school. I remember, I still remember, and I tell people this all the time. I remember walking into the weight room the first day, 5'10", like a buck 25, and I remember one of my teammates whispering, obviously not quietly enough, from across the weight room, "What is he
Mhm.
doing here?" And
Mhm.
like, and
Wow.
I didn't know what I was getting myself into, to be fair, because I thought, oh, you just go and you throw the ball around. No, like there's structure and discipline, and
Yeah.
you're going to be hurting and you're going to get hit. And like, I had no idea. I just wanted to do it, because I had always wanted to do it. I thought it would make me popular at the time,
I'm done.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
and that didn't happen either. But
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, and my mom had signed off on it. She was always afraid to let me. She was afraid I'd get hurt. But then she's like,
Yeah.
"All right, it'll help you, keep your grades up," which it also didn't do. But what it taught me was resilience. It taught me what I had in me. I remember very important person in my life, my freshman football coach, who then came up with us to varsity, a guy by the name of Dan Widener, told me, "You're the hardest working player on this team." And I kind of, when he told me that, this was freshman year, like early in like camp, like summer practice, I look around like, me? He's like, "Yeah, like nobody's out working you right now." I'm like, "Really?" Like that's the first time I'd ever heard that. That's the first time I ever associated myself with work ethic,
Yeah.
and it felt good to have that recognized. It felt good
Yeah.
to know that I had something, even if the skill wasn't there, which it certainly was not at that point. Like, all right, like I've got something to work with and I've got something that I can apply to this to get better. And I did, I still, by senior year, I was second team, and Coach Widener pulled some strings to start me in the state championship game because, I was a good guy and I worked hard and I stuck it out
Yeah.
for the 4 years. But it's like, even to get to that point from where I started, that moment of what is he doing here, like, was a small miracle. And then, from there, like, we win states. And I'm like, okay, what's next? I'm not done, And then it was the next hurdle of everyone's like, "You're going to go play in college, And I'm like, yeah,
Mm.
what, nothing to it. Like, let's go. Like, I walked on to Moravian College, Division III. Didn't really see a whole lot of time there, but I did. I played college football, went on to play semi-pro, started most of my games at that level. And then, it was 2011, 2012, post college, life's kind of changing, and all that CTE stuff starting to come out. So I'm like, maybe I should either try to get
Mhm.
paid for this or stop. And I
Yeah.
had a couple arena tryouts. Again, small miracle. Wasn't the worst player at either one, but I didn't make it. And I'm like,
Okay.
all right, I just gotten that first corporate gig in New York. I'm like, all right, obviously this is time to shift away. But like that showed me that there are no finish lines, and there's always that next level to aspire to. And you can always keep going as long as the will is there. And as long as, you have something that you still want to achieve, like you can do that. Right. And then in the midst of all that, to get back to your original question, because I took us on an entire tangent there,
No, you're good.
uh,
You're good.
my sophomore year of high school,
Yeah.
it was toward the beginning of the season, and I saw that a lump under my left ring finger. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, what is that? It was after practice one day. I remember we were asked to go help roll up the wrestling mats in the wrestling room after practice. And I'm like, what is
Mm-hmm.
that? Show my mom when I get home. And, for a couple months, it's just like, okay, just kind of keep an eye on it, whatever. After the season, got a biopsy and it was a very malignant tumor. And it was a fibrous histiocytoma. And they told me that if it had spread, chemo or radiation would not have worked. And so, race against
Mm,
time. Let's get
yeah.
this thing out. Maybe
Wow.
it's even been in there too long now.
Yeah.
And I was diagnosed March 31st, 2003. On April 15th, I had surgery to remove the finger and the tumor and a lymph node biopsy, the whole thing. It hadn't gone anywhere. I was very, very fortunate. But within 16 days from diagnosis to surgery, and then it was about recovering. And, even then, like I was told, oh, it's going to be 12 months. I mean, my hand had been reconstructed pretty much. And I
Mm-hmm.
took that as a challenge. I'm like, no, it's not. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to play football. Junior year's coming up. Like, and I had already started to think of like, okay, do I want to keep playing after high school? Like I did. I knew that I did in my heart. And I'm like, well, then I need to play junior year. And so went to physical therapy 3 times a week. I think I snuck in a fourth a couple times. I mean, I was going like, I remember there was times going to physical therapy, like just kind of showing up like, hey, you got time for a drop in? Like there was one
Mm-hmm.
time my sister and I were going to a concert at Giant Stadium. This is in New Jersey. And like, I'm like, okay, we can go. But first, you need to take me to physical therapy. Like, we're doing this,
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I saw it working. I saw it go from 12 months to 8 months, the prognosis from 8 to 6. And my surgeon, in that checkup was like, all right, like, let's see how you keep recovering. I don't know how much more you'll knock this down. Next
Yeah.
time I go see him, he's like, I've never seen anyone recover like this before. You're cleared. 4 months.
Wow.
4 months. I was able to get into pads for the start of camp, play the whole season. And it just showed me again, like, not only is there always another level that you can reach, but like the only limitations that you place on yourself, the only limitations you have are the ones you place on yourself, right?
Mm,
Like
yeah. Yeah.
nobody else can place them on you. I mean, you can adopt that story. You can
Yeah.
you can really internalize that narrative of, if I heard 12 months, I'm like, okay, it's going to be 12 months. I guess I'm not playing this year. But I
Yeah.
took that as a challenge. I'm like, no, no, no. I'm not getting cleared next April and maybe squeezing out my senior year. Like, we're doing this and
We're
I'm
doing
at
this.
least gonna get part of the season and I end up getting the whole thing. And it's because I didn't take that as gospel, and to my surgeon's credit, brilliant man by the name of Dr. Earl Fliegler out of Philly. Like, he had done this a bunch of times and helped so many people, and he was amazing at what he did. So he had every
Mm-hmm.
reason to think it would take that long. But I
Yeah.
had youth on my side, and I wasn't gonna stop. And that's the thing. I think that's really informed the journey here, building UMC from the Quinn Spin, 11 years ago to now is like, I've never been willing to give up, and there have been times where it's like, maybe I came close, maybe I thought about it, but at the end of the day, I can't bring myself to do it. I just can't.
Yeah.
Like, people, there are times, even now where it's like, oh, should I go get a corporate thing for a while, kind of take the edge off a little bit? And I'm like, I can't bring myself to do it, because
Yeah.
I'm committed to
Yeah.
this and I can't take away from this to give to that, and I
Mm-hmm.
know that this platform, in whatever shape it takes going forward, like, it's going to grow and it's going to become something that's a force to be reckoned with, not just in the music industry, but in the creative space, in the entrepreneurship space. Like, I know that inherently. And, that determination that I found, between football and cancer and the way those two things intertwined in my life in high
Mm-hmm.
school really set the tone so much for everything that's happening even now. It's
Yeah.
like, I mentioned the challenge of like, I'm, of course, maintaining my life here in Nashville, daily life as well as business, while also like finding these opportunities in other markets to build these pipelines and having to rise to that occasion, having to bootstrap the whole thing right now. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, well, you can either not do that or you can find a way to do it. Like, there's really no halfway for me at this point. It's like, I'm either going to do it or I'm not going to do it. And so I'm going to do it because I've come too far.
Yep.
And I'm it's the point of no return. I mean, it's been past that, I think, where it's like, I'm going to find a way forward because that's just what I do. That's just what we do. And, I find as I focus more on that and like really, lead with that intention of finding ways forward,
Yeah.
that I find more people coming in my orbit who have the same mentality, who have taken risks of their own, who have been through their own tribulations. And it's like, okay, I've been through that. I'm going to apply that lesson to this, and I'm going
Mhm.
to take this as far as it can go and believe in how far it can go.
Yeah.
And it all started back then. It all started with me walking into that weight room the first day, hearing that and being like, try me. Try me. I've
Yeah.
always had that chip on my shoulder. And like, I think I have it a lot better in check now that I'm an, adult, and I'll be 40 in a few years. Like, I don't let the emotion, kind of,
Yeah.
drive that forward as much as I used to in my younger day. I'm not nearly as hot headed as I was back then, but it's like that chip is still there. And if somebody tells me I can't do something,
Hmm.
I like,
You're
I get
like,
a
all
smirk
right,
on my
bet.
face. Uh huh. I'm like, all right, watch me,
Yes.
because it's going to happen. And that's just how it's going to go, So
Yeah.
it's been, a beautiful journey. And like this, even talking to you now is kind of helping me realize like the entrepreneurship journey didn't start in 2013. It didn't
No.
even start in 2011 with my first business idea, which was to write resumes for me and all of my broke unemployed friends who had graduated into a recession, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
started in 2001, June 25th, 2001, walking into that weight room and
Mm.
hearing that and being like, I'm going to create something out of this moment. And I
Yeah.
don't think at 14, I knew that's what I was doing. I don't
Yeah.
think I
No,
had the
not at all.
wherewithal, but like there was just something there that's like, no, that's not going to stop me. Like, I'll show you what I'm here for. And
What I'm
here we
capable of.
are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Here we are 20 plus years later, finding different ways to do that.
See, that's the type of stuff that like people need to hear that, right? Like it's not just the I started a business and then the rest is sunshine and butterflies. It's like those early instances in your childhood, those early instances in your adulthood that really help to shape and guide honestly your narrative and how you want to be and how you want to show up for yourself. And just with everything you said, and my mind immediately went to just kind of hearing comments like, this is why you can't have an option B when you're deciding to be an entrepreneur, because if you're really going to do this, there is no other option. There is no, oh well, if it doesn't work out, I'm just going to go back to my nine. Like, no, you have to be so locked in to your goal and your vision, otherwise it's never going to work. And I think that's something that people really really need to hear, and maybe find some way to resonate in that you have to be so locked into your vision and what you're trying and hoping to achieve that it can't be a side hustle, right? It can't be a, oh, this is just kind of a, like it's a side hustle that eventually I'll make it into a full, like that's not how that works. I've seen some be successful in that, but not as many
Right.
by a long shot.
Yeah, at some point you've got to lift the anchor and leave the shore, right? And
Mm,
I think I realized that, back in the Lehigh Valley Underground days. I remember a specific conversation. So, and here's the thing I want to preface this with too. Like,
yeah.
you deciding to go all in on your dreams is going to thin the herd a little bit. It's like people are going to fall away and people aren't going to
Mm,
get it. And like the people around you are going to change, right?
yeah.
Some will go away, new ones will come in, right? And like relationships will be affected by it. And I
Yeah.
remember, I had a long-term relationship at the time. This was toward the end of it. So this was in 2017. And I remember expressing wanting to take the leap, and preface this by saying like there's no resentment or hard feelings at all. I have a great relationship with my ex, but I remember her saying to me like, well, that's going to take 10 years. I'm like, okay. And if it does, like
Yeah.
just kind of
Yeah.
left it open ended. Like if
Yeah.
it does, then it does. And
Yeah.
looking back, it took 10 years. Actually, it's taking 11 years. Like here we are, and
Yeah.
we're still on the journey. Like it never ends. Like there's no finish
Hmm.
line. And you have to be willing to commit to that, but also like it does make, I think, your relationships challenging because you've got to align yourself with people who get it, right? And that was a situation where we wanted different things, and soon after that we did split. And she's got what she wants. She's married. She's doing great. I'm doing what I want to do, and it's like it ended up working out for the better. But like that's going to happen, and you're going to encounter that kind of pain, and you're going to encounter those kind of disagreements. People are
Yeah.
going to fall off, but new ones will come in, and you're going to attract who and what's meant for you as you go on this journey. And the journey's not for everybody, and it will feel lonely a lot of the time. There was a lot of time after that where it did. Like, from 2017, moved to Nashville, end of 2018, kind of had a slight boost, like, but there was a lot of time where I kind of felt like I was on my own, just completely on this island, and
Yeah.
nobody got it. And I think like by committing to this path, especially from the start of 2021 onward, is I've had a chance to find and refine my tribe. I was just talking to
Mhm.
Lord Goldie the other day, who's one of the artists I work
Yeah.
with, who
Yeah.
and like we were talking about how the dynamics just kind of change, have changed in our circle over time. It's like people get weeded out, and new people will come in, and over time you're going to find who those people are that you're going to move forward with and that you're going to win with. Like it's, you think of, think back to sports. How do you construct a winning team? Like not everybody, who's on your team at the start, when a new coaching staff or whatever comes in is
Yeah.
going to be there at the end. Like you're going to have that turnover from year to year as you try to make things better, to find people who are a better fit, people who aren't a good fit, maybe go somewhere else. It's the same thing in business. Like you have to have
Mhm.
the right mix of people, not only in terms of skill set, but culturally.
Yeah.
Like what do they bring to the culture of what you're trying to do? What is
Mm.
their ethos? Like, are you moving in the same direction, and are you doing good work for the same right reasons? Right.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, how you can construct a team in one area of life is how you construct a team in any area of life, whether it's business, whether it's sports, whether it's your personal life and your relationships. Are the people around you adding to your life, and are you adding to theirs just the same, or are you draining each other? Right. And are you
Yeah.
not really able to step into who you are around each other? If you can step into who you are and really just have that embrace and embrace who the other person is on the other end, like that's a winning combination, that's a winning formula. And I'm fortunate, at this point in the journey, to be finding more and more of those people. This hasn't felt lonely in a while, which is great,
Yeah.
because it's like
Yeah.
I know I'm onto something now, because like the people who are coming into my life, coming into the platform, who I'm collaborating with, like, they're all there intentionally, and we're all moving in similar directions, and we all have something that we can do to help each other grow. And so that's
Yeah.
an important thing too, is who you surround yourself with. It's
100%.
whatever that is, the five people you surround yourself with the most, like you're the average of, right? And
Mm.
it's true. The energy that you take in is the energy that is going to impact you, and the energy that you're going to exude.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? There's something in this and how you're building your tribe and how you're building your network, and understanding that, some of these people, they're not going to be along for the full ride. They're here for this moment, they're here for this time period. And that's it. And that's perfectly fine, right? And one thing for me, I go back to, I hear a lot with entrepreneurs that will lose their passion for their space or their industry over time because of the challenges, because of relationships or lack thereof, or feeling like you're on a lonely island. And that sucks. It really does suck, And I feel like we've all had that collective experience at least once in this entrepreneurial journey of feeling like you're on this lonely island by yourself until you find your tribe, until you find your core group of people. So for you, I want to know, how do you keep your passion for supporting independent musicians alive even to this day? And what is that like for you? How do you keep that passion and that motivation?
I think at this point, like seeing the progress is a big contributor to that, right? Just
Mhm.
seeing like the things that we're able to create through UMC, the opportunities that I'm having, the people that I'm having a chance to meet and collaborate with, like seeing that all come together after all this time. It's like, it really is the amalgamation of all this work over the past 11 years, right?
Yeah.
And because I think, yeah, I'm the type of person, like I have to constantly be growing, I have to
Yeah.
constantly be moving forward. Like I don't want stale routines, I don't
Yeah.
want to stagnate, I don't want plateaus. If it's plateauing, And not to say there haven't been times like this in this past
Yeah.
11 years, because like there have, where I feel like I'm plateauing. I feel like things are kind of starting that slow
Yeah.
dive. And it's like that tells me that I've got to switch something up, right?
Yeah.
And so always seeking out new opportunities, new collaborations, new ideas right now. That's
Yeah.
what really excites me. And I think, especially since the rebrand back to UMC, like
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
been saying yes to more of the right opportunities
Mm.
and no to more of the wrong ones. And it doesn't matter if the
Mm.
wrong ones are making money or not. If they're wrong, they're wrong, right? Like I've
Yeah.
definitely turned down work. I've definitely turned down projects where it's like, you know what, this just doesn't fit, or it doesn't fit anymore. It
Yeah.
doesn't really, it's not really aligned with where I'm going, with where the platform's going. It's kind of like sometimes it'd even be like in direct competition with it, in direct like competition in the sense of like, I'm pouring into this, so I can't pour into that. And it's the same thing if I were to go get a 9 to 5 right now. It's like I'm pouring into that. So 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
I get done. I've been sitting in front of a screen, and I'm going to go sit in front of a screen some more. Like you only have so much bandwidth throughout the day to handle all
Yeah.
that blue light, right? So it's like
Yeah.
finding new challenges, finding new collaborations. I mean, one I'm really excited about, and as of recording, it's right before I go up for Gussapalooza in Canada, just north of Toronto. Like those folks started this festival a few years back. And like it's the same ethos as UMC.
Yeah.
Like, let's provide opportunities not only to independent artists, but to all the people who support them. Right. And they've built this grassroots festival that's like becoming a pretty big deal in the Toronto music scene, right? It's 3 days, you camp
Yeah.
out, they have seminars, they have like a whole convention portion of an art show, like food vendors, and of course music. And it's like it's all grown out of an idea, and to just like be able to lend any kind of support through UMC to that, and to
Hmm.
build that pipeline up to the Toronto area and have that start to work back and forth, like that's what we want. We want to build these pipelines. Like Nashville is the hub for
Yeah.
UMC. It's home base, right? But we
Yeah.
have these pipelines, of course, up to Toronto now. Of course, we've had one back to Bethlehem since before I left Bethlehem, and now like we've had a chance over the past year to do a couple of events there, and I had the chance to go present at their conference during Music Fest in August,
Yeah.
and that got the ball rolling for other opportunities. I'm excited to go to New Orleans at the end of October and
Yeah.
present at NOLA MusicCon. Like all of these things have the opportunity to build new connections, new pipelines, new opportunities,
Yeah.
not just for me, not just for UMC, but for
Yeah.
everybody who's in that ecosystem. And from there, what I'm looking for, is who are the artists, who are the creatives that, are thinking that same way and that want to build these pipelines collaboratively and with a mind of how can I add to what this person's doing in Toronto, what this person's doing in Bethlehem, Philly, New York, wherever, right? How can
Yeah.
I add to what they're doing and help that rising tide raise all boats, because that's what it's going to take. We have the power as creatives to not only take the power back in this industry, but to build our own. We have
Yeah.
more tools at our disposal than ever, more technology. For as much of a bad rap in the artist community as having to make content gets, content is your friend, it's not your enemy.
Yes.
I want to
Yeah.
emphasize that. Like we have more tools at our disposal than we've ever had at any time in recorded human history to build something without some gatekeeper, right? The
Exactly.
last thing we should be
Yeah.
doing is complaining about the tools. What we should be
Fact.
doing is we should be learning how to use them and
Mhm.
applying that knowledge to help other people build their thing, and to build an ecosystem that, whether or not major label X ever wants to sign any of our artists, it's cool because we're doing our
Yeah.
own thing. We're making money. We've got the life we want. And okay, cool. Like if it makes sense to work with an organization or a company like that, then it does. But we're not beholden to that. It doesn't determine our
Yeah.
success, and it doesn't have to. We can be artistpreneurs and we can build our own industry. And that's what keeps me going, is like I see it. I see the vision of it. I see UMC having a very important role in it. And I want to see that all the way through. And, it's funny because like it's here in Nashville, it's like I'm surrounded by that mindset constantly, because everybody I know is on this journey in one way or another. I go
Yeah.
home, and in some respects, it's like, well, everybody's kind of married and having kids and building extensions on their houses. And here I am still doing this thing. And it's like
Yeah.
you start to feel like when you surround yourself with, a different kind of energy, you start to feel like maybe you're lagging behind, right? Like maybe,
Mm,
I'm going to be 40 in a few years. Maybe this better work soon. Like it puts more pressure on you to see what other people are doing, with their lives, and more power to them. But like, this is what I'm doing with mine. And I think like being here in Nashville and being surrounded by more and more of this intentional creative energy, not just here, but in these other
yeah,
markets we're starting to touch,
yeah,
like it lights me up and it keeps things moving forward. And it shows me like, hey, I'm not alone in this. Like we can
yeah,
build this thing. It's a we, it's not a me. And
yeah.
it helps me kind of keep those other thoughts at bay as far as like, am I behind the eight ball being 37 and not owning a house yet? Like,
Right,
you
right.
know,
And
but
especially
it's
as a
fine.
like as a former Nashvilleian, right?
Mhm.
Nashville is my hometown. For those of you that are not aware, I go and visit probably 2 to 3 times a year to check out my family and everything like that. It is so refreshing to come back home and be able to be surrounded by so much flow of creativity. It is insane. If you haven't been in Nashville, like you need to, because when I tell you, when you step in it, and you're really just in it, you just feel the energy and the vibration of the city. And it's something that like I have not found in any other city visiting, vacationing, none of that. Like you just don't get that experience like you do in Nashville. It's amazing. And and you spoke earlier about just the importance of using these platforms and content creation and all of that. Do you feel like that was the catalyst for you to relaunch the Quinn Spin and really push it back out there like that? Was
Mhm.
that part of that process?
Yeah, it's funny because like I tell people, oh, I've been doing my podcast since 2013. And they're like, oh, you're an early adopter. And I'm like, I wish I knew what that meant back then.
Ooh,
I had no idea like
that is
what I
dope.
was doing.
Actually, that
It,
is really cool. To
it's
be,
like,
yeah,
yeah, to be thought of in that way is cool. But
yeah,
like, to tell you the truth, I was just like rolling the episodes out on SoundCloud. And it was
yeah,
like, at first it was for me, at first it was
yeah,
because I felt like a spoke in the wheel. And
yeah,
I was going to work, and I had my relationship, and both were kind of long distance from where I was situated in New Jersey. So I'd be spending my weeks in New York, my weekends down by Philly, and I'm in North Jersey, kind of between the two. Like I never really had any time to myself until that one weekend where I decided to dig up some creative projects, and that was the one I landed on as far as
yeah.
what I was going to do as an outlet. And that was kind of spurred by a couple months prior to that. Like after going, just like go to New York, go to Philly, go to New York, go to Philly. Like took a road trip across the country, and I had several panic attacks on that road trip. And what I came down to was like, I need an outlet, and I need to figure out what that is this summer. And a couple months later, it ended up being this podcast. I'm like, oh, I've heard of this podcast thing people are doing. Maybe I could do that with my
Yeah,
old radio
yeah.
show. And it's amazing to see what happened like shortly after that, because
Mhm.
within a couple weeks, I was doing community theater at the time as another outlet. And my friend Adam, who goes by Scotty Rock on the Quinn Spin, I told him about it. He's like, oh, I'd love to come on. And then he ended up being my co-host every week for the next 2 years. Like,
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
this groundswell started happening. I started like finding more artists started finding out about us, like, and submitting their music. We had this relationship with Reverb Nation, which was really big at the time. Like, and we just started having these opportunities to go places and do things and present, be a part of, create opportunities. And like, it was the first time I think I had ever really put that kind of intention towards something I was creating from zero.
Hmm.
And all of this has been created from that point. Like Underground Music Collective, our Nash Live events, the academy, like the mentorship, like the membership community we're starting to build, all the speaking engagements, the book that I'm releasing in February, all came from that night, August 17th, 2013, where I listened to my old college radio show and remembered what it was like to do something every week that somebody cared about.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I am just amazed that it started with a USB mic and a laptop in my childhood bedroom. And as of this recording, I'm going up to Canada in 2 days to speak on it. Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
unreal, but it's like,
yeah.
it's one of those things where, you have that moment, you're able to appreciate it. And then it's like, okay, well, let's create more moments. Like, I want
Yeah.
more of that. It's like, I don't want to say you become addicted to it after a while, but it's like you do start to get curious about how far can I take this? What next steps can I take to
Yeah.
grow this impact, to grow this platform, and have it serve more people, and
Yeah.
have it, have it give back to me and to everybody who's been a part of this ride, who's contributed something to this. Like, I want to see this
Yeah.
pay off. I want to see all the sacrifice pay off that not only I've had to make, but other people have had to make. Like being in Nashville, I'm away from my nieces and nephew. Like,
Yeah.
that's the part of this that sucks. But it's like, I know what I'm building, and I believe in what I'm building, and I'm building a life that's going to allow me to show up whenever, wherever I want. And so that, in a personal sense, is the motivation.
Yeah.
But just
Yeah.
seeing where this is led, like, I believe in where it can go, and
Yeah.
that's what keeps it moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So we can't end this without discussing this really quickly. And I think it's important, especially for those that are like tuning in and everything, to really hear this from you. But you've been able to land major deals and partnerships like Red Bull, Universal Music Group. So I want to hear from you, just what is your advice for entrepreneurs that are interested and want to lock down and build those partnerships with big names in their industry? Like, what is your advice to that person that's saying, like, you know what, I want to go for that? Like, what do I need to do? Like, what is my first step, or what is the skills that I need to have in order for that to be successful, or at least get me close to what my goal is?
Show up, do the work consistently, and build something that provides consistent value. I think, again, going back to that idea of overnight success, which
Yeah.
again does not exist.
No.
Like,
Not at all.
so many people, are given this idea that it's easy and you just need to go viral, and all of a sudden all this stuff's going to pour in because such and such on Instagram lied about how they did it, right?
Yeah.
And I use that word intentionally, lied, because there's a lot of lying happening out
Yes.
there.
Yes.
I'm,
Let's just be
I'm,
real. Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm pulling back the curtain on the whole internet today. But like, somebody has to do it anyway.
Somebody has
But
to
like,
do it. Debunk the myth.
yeah, yeah. It's funny because I decided recently that I've landed on, and this is a tangent, and then I'll get back to you answering your
Yeah. Yeah.
question.
Yeah. You're good.
I'm gonna just publicly start calling myself the anti-guru now. Like,
Love it.
you know
Yes.
what? I'm tired of the gurus. I'm tired of
Yep.
all this, smoke and mirrors and bells and whistles and everything everyone's doing to make themselves sound like they're an expert on something. Like, I'm an expert through the ways that I'm not an expert. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm an
Mm-hmm.
expert through the ways that I have fallen on my face. I'm not a guru. I'm the anti-guru. And that's where I'm going to leave that for now. But anyway,
I
to
love
get back
that.
to your question, like, I it's interesting because I had a recent conversation where I was trying, and I've gotten to the point where most of the time I don't try to convince people of things, but for some reason this day I was trying to convince somebody that, like, hey, you've got to really build some value in your platform in order to get X organization to seriously take a look at you. Like, you've got to
Yeah.
start rolling out consistent content. There has to be engagement. There has to be continuity. There has to be a story. There has to be a purpose behind it if you want this organization with XYZ values to take a chance on working with you,
Yeah.
right? And I got a lot of pushback on that, and I'm like, it's only what I've seen work for the past 11 years. I mean,
Hello.
by creating a platform that, consistently shows up, consistently
Mhm.
delivers content, is always creating the next thing, like, people see that momentum, and decision makers see that momentum. They're like, oh, maybe this is something that we should pay attention to and buy
Mm.
into. And maybe this is somebody we should partner with. The Red Bull thing came about. We had worked up with them on an event here in the studio that UMC was just kind of like a media partner on. And then I had the contact, and I had actually sent a sponsorship email to them for, I think it was heading into 2022, like our sponsorship offerings for the blog, for the site, right?
Mhm.
And my contact got back to me. He's like, well, we're not going to do that, but hey, can you help us promote this event? Right. And it
Mm.
was this really cool event. It was called Red Bull Sound Clash over at Marathon Music Works, which is like a good, like 1,500 cap venue just about. And it was these two rising star artists, like Sheryl Crow ended up appearing that night. It was amazing. And
Nice.
they hired us to promote it for them. But
Yeah.
they wouldn't have hired us to promote it for them if we didn't already establish some sense of value, right?
Mm.
Like, we just were brought in by the Nashville Predators, our NHL franchise here, to be part of their Preds Perks affiliate program, right? That's because
Mhm.
we've established ourselves in this ecosystem enough to where they know we're going to push it out and potentially drive them some business, right? Doesn't
Yeah.
cost them anything, doesn't cost us anything, but it's a way to establish that relationship. So figure out what value you can provide somebody and provide it, and then show up and demonstrate that value every single day. It is an everyday thing. You should be posting content every day. Content should have a purpose. It should be on
Mm,
message. But your
yeah.
brand is just you amplified. You're not having to create a brand. If you're creating a brand, then you're doing it wrong, because it shouldn't have to be created. It should come from within. It should come from who you are, and then just push it up to 11, as we say here in the industry. Like, just be
Yeah.
you, amplify who you are, amplify what your values are, and the right opportunities, the right people are going to come. And we found that time and time again with the people we've had a chance to partner with, whether it was a one off, whether it's a more consistent thing. It's like we provided something of value, and we came at it from a place to where it was clear how we could mutually help each other. Right. And that's the other thing I want to drive home too, is you've got to provide some value back. I think one mistake a lot of artists make is just like the gimme, gimme, gimme thing. Like,
Yep.
hey, I'm going to spam you with all my links to my music. I'm just going to send you a link and be like, my song's out now. Listen now. I'm going to
Yeah.
send you my show flyer. I'm going to ask you to come cover my show and dedicate hours of time and
Hmm.
resources to doing it for free. If you're just asking without
Yeah.
giving some value in return, you're not going to
Mhm.
get to where you want to go. It's a fair value exchange. And I think it also goes to say, like, go a level deeper with it too, and figure
Yeah.
out what your unique value proposition is. What do you bring to the table that nobody else in your niche does in quite the same way? What can people get from you that they can't get anywhere else? Because as musicians, there are more people making music than ever. A music fest during that conference in August, one of the keynote speakers had said that by 2030 there will be 1.3 billion, with a B, music producers in the world.
Hmm.
So it's easier to make music and get it out there than ever, but it's harder than ever to stand out. How you do it is by differentiating yourself, is by how you brand yourself, the stories you tell, the experiences you create, and the way you make your people feel important. And I
Hmm.
see so many artists just asking for things or just doing things that everyone else is doing. How many singer songwriters are going by their first and middle name and posing in front of the Wings here in Nashville? Do something different.
Shots fired. Yeah.
Do what
Yeah.
people aren't doing. Like,
Yeah.
stop with the first middle name thing. I will end that one day. UMC will be single-handedly responsible for nobody
For
doing
ending
that
that.
anymore. For ending that. Like, I'm first name, middle name, a singer-songwriter from anywhere USA, and here's my song, Trucks and Beer. You and everybody else.
Yeah.
What are you
Yeah.
bringing to the table that I can't get from, singer-songwriter X, Y, or Z over here?
Yep.
How are you
True.
differentiating yourself and
Yeah.
connecting in a way like a Taylor Swift does? Well, that's the level you should be thinking of. You're
Always.
not Taylor Swift. You're never going to be Taylor Swift, because Taylor
Yeah.
Swift is already Taylor Swift. But be
Yes.
you, and be
Yeah.
you better than anybody can be you. And the
Yeah.
right people, the right situations and opportunities will come.
That is like the perfect wrap up. Like, and to sum this entire conversation up is show up and show up authentically, show up as you, and really drive that home. That will get you everything that you're looking for, everything you're aiming at the end of the day. It's like it's got to be you. If you're showing up as somebody else, it'll never be what it needs to be, and you'll never get the results that you're looking for. So I love that's the way we're going to close today. I know we're some time out, and I'm sure you got a ton you need to get to, but how can people connect with you if they want to reach out, if they want to tap into your resources, your services, or what we were just talking about in partnerships, want to partner with UMC? How can they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So umcnashville.com is our central hub for all things independent music, creativity, community, and more. You can also find us on most of the socials at UMC Nashville. Facebook, it's UMC Worldwide. Because of that whole awkward rebrand, I changed it, and then I tried changing it back, and the United Methodist Church of Nashville took it. So UMC
Yeah.
Nashville on most of the socials, UMC Worldwide on Facebook, umcnashville.com is the central hub. You can also learn more about the Quinn Spin there, as well as at Quinn Spin Official on Instagram and Threads, the Quinn Spin on Facebook, and of course on our streaming platforms. So you've got, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. All the episodes go to the Underground Music Collective YouTube channel as well, so you can listen to or watch the show there. We're rolling out episodes weekly right now. We're going to go back to twice a week in October. It's been a busy summer, and it's shaping up to be a busy
Just a
fall.
little,
So I want
right?
to ease back in. I don't want to promise and then not deliver. So
Yeah.
weekly for now. We'll go back to 2 times a week once things start to slow down a little bit for the season. Nash Live Shows at Nash Live Shows is our experiential event arm here in Nashville. It's called Nash Live, and that's the handle at Nash Live Shows. And if you want to follow me, it's at Gerard Longo 12. You can also find a little link to my first ever ebook, and it will be available in paperback as well once Amazon lets me put it through. There's a certain time limit, you can only do
Yeah.
that 60 days, before the release. It's
Hmm.
releasing February 25th, and it's called 60 Plus Lessons from the Creative Journey.
Nice.
And I'm just brain dumping everything I've learned, or as much as I can remember. Lesson anecdote. It's going to be funny. It's going to be fun. You should definitely check it out. Get your copy now. And I think that's everything. But there are always more things. So yes, yeah, umcnashville.com will take you most of the places you need to go.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I thank you again so much. This was such an amazing conversation. I definitely want to follow up with you again in a couple months, especially once your schedule somewhat, simmers down, but I feel like it's not going to simmer down that much. But eventually have another talk with you and just check in. And I always love our chats. I love our talks, and I always feel like I leave with something and leave with more than what I came into it with. It so I just appreciate you being so forthcoming, so inspirational, and just being someone that I can say that you're in my tribe, not just even a client business relationship, but I feel like I consider you a friend. So definitely appreciate your time so much with this. And yeah, I'm thinking of t-shirts, UMC t-shirts with all of the quotes that you dropped during this entire call. That is just going to be yeah, so I got my UMC shirt, y'all. So maybe this is possibly a branding thing, right?
There we go.
We
Yeah, I'm going
might
to have
do
to
in the
listen back to
future.
this and yeah, I'll have to listen back to this, get into Printify, and start designing some new stuff. So it'll
Listen,
be
always
yep.
see entrepreneurs, always thinking, always creating. I love it. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again, Gerard. This was awesome.
Thanks, Brandy.